Mom, we haven't eaten in 3 days. Could we please get a bagel or just a little soup?
Yes, son. Today and every day.
In the freezing cold of New York, a woman running a small food cart on the sidewalk used to feed 3 homeless children every single day. Exactly 25 years later, 3 shiny black limousines pulled up in front of that same old food cart. 3 wealthy men, dressed in sharp suits, stepped out of the cars, knelt down on the pavement before that poor old woman, and changed her life forever. Friends, to know the whole truth behind this heart-touching story, please watch the video until the very end. Nestled in the suburbs of Chicago, there was a beautiful Victorian-style house where vines climbed the porch and flowers danced in the wind. This was the world of Sarah and David. For Sarah, that house wasn't just a structure of bricks and wood, it was the sanctuary of her dreams. David, who was a humble accountant at an insurance firm, was incredibly simple and soft-spoken by nature. They had been married for 5 years. In these 5 years, there was immense love, but the backyard of their home never echoed with the laughter of a child, a desire every married woman holds deep in her heart. Sarah would often sit by the window in the evening, watching the neighborhood kids play baseball, and silently place a hand on her empty lap. A strange desolation would float in her eyes, which she kept hidden from the world. This desolation was made even deeper by her mother-in-law, Mrs. Margaret. Margaret's personality was like a hard rock, full of bitterness that Sarah had to endure every single day. One morning, while Sarah was cleaning the living room, Margaret threw a taunt at Sarah, saying, "It's been 5 years, Sarah. If David had married a girl who could give him an heir, my old eyes would have seen the face of a grandson by now. You turned out to be a stone statue from whom only hopes are broken." The broom slipped from Sarah's hand. Her eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't turn back to give an answer. She just quietly went into the kitchen and stifled her sobs in her apron. David understood his wife's silent pain. One night, he took Sarah's hand in his and said in a very gentle voice, "Sarah, I want to take you away from this suffocating environment. Let's spend a few days in the mountains of Colorado, in Aspen. The peace there might put a balm on your wounds." Sarah tried to refuse, but seeing the love hidden in David's eyes, she couldn't say no. Amidst the snowy winds and towering peaks of Colorado, those 10 days passed like magic. There, on the steps of an old wooden chapel, they met an elderly pastor. The pastor's white beard and calm blue eyes seemed to read Sarah's inner soul. Knowing Sarah's anguish, the old man gave her some herbal tea and, placing his hand on her head in blessing, said in a low voice, "Have patience, my child. Nature never leaves anyone's hands empty. Your lap will not remain empty now. This is a sign from God." Those words planted a new sprout of hope in Sarah's withered heart. After returning from Colorado, Sarah's days began to change. She often felt fatigue, and in the mornings she felt nauseous. One afternoon, while she was dusting the house, she suddenly felt a sharp dizziness and collapsed on the floor, unconscious. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in David's lap. There was deep worry on David's face. Offering her water, he panicked and said, "Sarah, are you okay? I'm taking you to Dr. Williams right now." Just then, David's phone rang. It was a call from his office. There was a major technical failure in the company's biggest audit project, and his immediate presence was mandatory. With great reluctance, David kissed Sarah's forehead and said, "Sarah, I have to leave for the office. You take an Uber to the clinic nearby. I will try to come straight there. Take care of yourself, my love." Sarah reached the clinic alone. The doctor ran some tests and then, smiling, handed the file to Sarah. "Congratulations, Mrs. Sarah. You are going to be a mother," the doctor said. Sarah felt as if the entire universe had stood still. Tears of joy began to stream down her face. With trembling hands, she immediately called David. David was on the highway driving his car at high speed. As soon as he picked up the phone, Sarah chirped through her sobs. "David, listen, we are going to be parents. The pastor's prayer came true. A little guest is coming to our home." Hearing this, David's happiness knew no bounds. He slammed his hand on the steering wheel and shouted, "Is it true, Sarah? I am the luckiest man alive. I'm coming to the clinic right now. We will celebrate this new life together. I will handle my case myself and show the world that—" But his sentence remained incomplete. On the other end of the phone, Sarah heard a loud scream, followed by the terrifying sound of metal crashing. "David! David!" Sarah screamed, but there was only a haunting silence. Sarah ran out of the clinic, frantic, running onto the road. She kept calling again and again, but the call wouldn't connect. Just then, she received a call from an unknown number. A police officer asked in an extremely heavy voice, "Are you Mr. David's wife? There has been a terrible accident on the highway. Your husband's car collided with an out-of-control truck. Mr. David is no longer in this world." Both the phone and her pregnancy report slipped from Sarah's hand onto the pavement. A few raindrops soaked the report. Moments ago, she had felt the sensation of new life in her womb. Little did she know that in that very moment, her entire world had been destroyed. She sat right there on the ground. She had neither tears nor a voice, just an endless darkness before her. The news of David's death was not just a piece of news for Sarah, but the end of her entire existence. The hospital corridor where just hours ago she was swaying with the joy of motherhood now felt as silent and terrifying as a graveyard. The sharp smell of disinfectant in the air and the whiteness of the walls pierced Sarah's eyes. She lay on a bed, lifeless. Her gaze was fixed on the slow motion of the ceiling fan, but she couldn't see anything clearly. David's last happy scream was still echoing in her ears. Just then, the heavy door of the room opened slowly, and the doctor entered. The seriousness on his face said a lot without speaking. The doctor came close to Sarah and said in a very low and compassionate voice, "Mrs. Sarah, please pull yourself together. Due to extreme mental trauma and heavy bleeding, we could not save your pregnancy. You have had a miscarriage."
Hearing this, something inside Sarah shattered completely. She neither cried nor screamed. Just a flood of tears flowed from her eyes. In a single day, fate had snatched everything from her. The partner who was her shield, and that little dream that had just begun to take shape within her. She was still feeling this unbearable pain when the door of the room swung open violently. Mrs. Margaret, whose white attire testified to her being a grieving mother, entered. There was sorrow in her eyes for losing her son, but far more hatred and poison for Sarah. She reached Sarah's bed, pointed her finger at her and roared, "Did you see the spectacle of your bad luck? You devoured my young son, didn't you? I said that very day that this girl is a curse for our house. You are just a jinx, Sarah, who swallowed the happiness of this home." Sarah tried to hold her mother-in-law's feet with trembling hands and pleaded with a choked throat, "Mom, please don't say that. I have lost everything. I lost my baby too. David's last sign is gone." But Margaret's heart of stone did not melt even a bit. She pulled her foot back with disgust and shouted, "What baby? That was the heir to my lineage, whom you extinguished with your dark shadow before it could even be born. You are so unfortunate that my son died because of you, and because of your sins, that little life died too. Don't fake sympathy here. I know you have your eyes set on David's insurance money now, but remember, I won't let a jinxed woman touch even a cent of my son's earnings. The doors of this house are closed to you forever." Sarah was stunned. She couldn't believe that the woman she considered a mother was ready to throw her onto the streets in this condition. Margaret pushed her, saying, "Get out of here. Take this wretched face of yours and go die somewhere, but never come in front of me again." 3 days later, when Sarah was discharged from the hospital, she had no roof over her head. Her parents had passed away years ago, and her in-laws had rejected her, calling her a curse. She stood at the hospital gate with a small bag. The scorching sun was burning her face, but inside her, an icy silence reigned. Cars were racing on the road, but for Sarah, time seemed to have stopped. She reached into her torn pocket and found some crumpled notes. This was the same cash David had told her to keep for emergencies. She pressed those notes to her chest, sat by the side of the road, and wept bitterly.
"Where will I go now, David? Did my love really become death for you?" she asked the void, sobbing. Now a long, dusty, and nameless road lay before her, which she had to walk alone. Society had stamped her as unlucky and left her to wander the streets. Time moved at its own intoxicated pace, and slowly the dust of memories began to settle on Sarah's wounds. After being rejected from her in-laws' doorstep, Sarah took refuge in a cramped and smelly slum near a noisy railway station in the city. She had 4 walls of brick and a leaking tin roof to live under. She spent the initial nights crying, clutching a torn blanket and David's old shirt to her chest on the floor. But soon she realized that tears could not quench her hunger. She remembered that David often used to say with relish while eating, "Sarah, there is magic in your hands. Even big hotels don't have this taste." She made her husband's words her strength. She sold her remaining jewelry, bought an old wooden cart, and polished it with her own hard work. A small board saying Sarah's Kitchen was hung on a dusty corner of the street. The days of struggle were soul-shaking. In the twilight of the morning, when the world was sleeping, Sarah would light the stove and dissolve her grief in the aroma of spices. Standing for hours in the scorching sun, she fed cheap and pure food to laborers and passers-by. Sometimes city officials came to remove the cart, and sometimes local thugs bullied her for free food. But Sarah remained steadfast. She would just say, "I will fight my own case. I don't need anyone's pity." One gloomy evening, when the sun had set and ink began to dissolve in the sky, Sarah was packing up her shop. Just then, her gaze fell under an old banyan tree across the road. 3 small boys were sitting there, clinging to each other. Their faces, height, and even the way they sat were exactly alike. They were brothers. Their torn shirts and dust-stained faces told the story of their poverty. Their eyes were staring at Sarah's empty pot, as if they saw their entire universe in it. Sarah waved her hand and called them over. They came close with frightened, timid steps. Sarah looked into their eyes where there was a strange craving of hunger. She asked in a gentle voice, "Son, what are you doing here alone? Where are your parents?" One of them wiped his nose with his torn sleeve and said, "Our mom died, and Dad left us and went somewhere. We have been looking for food in the trash for 3 days." Hearing this, Sarah's heart felt like it was bursting. She remembered the emptiness of her own womb that didn't let her sleep at night. She immediately lit the stove again and served hot bread and soup for those children. The children attacked the food like hungry wolves. Seeing them take bites, waterfalls of motherly love flowed from Sarah's eyes. When their stomachs were full, the youngest boy held the hem of Sarah's dress and asked innocently, "Will we get food tomorrow too?" Sarah got down on her knees, hugged all 3 of them to her chest, and said with a choked throat, "Yes, son, you come here every day. As long as this mother's hands are moving, you 3 will never sleep hungry." Sarah promised them. At that moment, Sarah felt as if David's incomplete dream and her lost child had returned in the form of these 3 innocents. She named them Ethan, Liam, and Noah. Now, the dawn had broken in Sarah's life. She was no longer a helpless widow, but had become the mother of 3 orphans. That corner of the street was now not just a shop, but a shelter of love and hope, where the fragrance of motherly love was far deeper than the taste of food. Time kept moving at its pace, and in the blink of an eye, 15 years passed. Sarah was now aging. Deep lines of time and wrinkles were clearly visible on her face. Her hands, which used to be soft, had become hard and blackened from working near the heat of spices and the stove fire. But her Sarah's kitchen had become the identity of that area and the hope of thousands of poor people. Ethan, Liam, and Noah were no longer small children. They had become young and capable. Sarah had sacrificed her own hunger and sleep to send them to the city's biggest colleges. One evening, when light raindrops were falling from the sky, Ethan came running and touched Sarah's feet. There was a unique sparkle of success in his eyes. "Mom, I got selected. I got a full scholarship to the city's biggest engineering college," he said with excitement. Tears of joy spilled from Sarah's eyes. She kissed Ethan's forehead and said, "I knew, son, that your hard work and my prayers would never go to waste. If your father, David, were here today, his chest would have swelled with pride." Liam was finding great success in law school and Noah in business. But once again, dark clouds of old enmity began to hover over this small nest of happiness. That old wealthy builder, Mr. Vance, who had evicted Sarah years ago after David's death, had now become the city's most powerful and cruel man. He feared that if these 3 boys became successful like this, they would take revenge for the injustice done to Sarah. He hatched a terrible conspiracy to break Sarah's courage. One afternoon, when Sarah was baking bread on her stove, the builder sent some thugs and corrupt police officers. Without any warning, they overturned Sarah's cart. "Hey, old woman, this land has now been bought to build a mall. Pack your bags and get out of here," a tall man shouted and scattered all her belongings and utensils on the road. Sarah folded her hands and pleaded, "Sir, this is my livelihood. The future of these children is tied to this stove." But they didn't listen to a word and pushed her to the ground. That same night, Sarah's health deteriorated and a high fever gripped her. While Sarah lay unconscious in her shack due to illness, the builder executed the second and deadliest part of his plot. He went to the city and met the 3 brothers. He showed them some forged documents and old photos and filled their minds with poison, saying, "The woman you consider your angel mother is actually the culprit behind your parents' death. She and her husband David killed your real parents together. She raised you only to lessen the burden of her sins and to claim rights over you to eat off your earnings." Ethan, Liam, and Noah, who were still unaware of the world's trickeries, accepted that false truth as reality. The love nurtured in their hearts for years turned into hatred in an instant. They reached Sarah's shack that same night, filled with anger. As soon as Sarah saw that her 3 sons had arrived, she tried to smile even in her sickness and called them close. "My children, you came? Look, Mom has made rice pudding for you." Just then, Ethan kicked the plate of pudding away in a rage. "Stop it! We know everything now, what a big fraud you are. You used us just to hide your sins," Ethan said with bitterness.
Sarah was stunned. She couldn't believe her eyes that these were the same children she had watered with her blood and sweat. Liam shouted, "From today, our relationship with you is over. Never show us your wretched face again." Sarah tried to hold their hands while crying. "Son, listen to me once. I didn't give birth to you from my womb, but I have loved you more than my life." But the ghost of hatred was riding on their heads. They picked up their bags and left that sick and helpless woman alone in the dark night. Noah turned around while leaving and said, "One day I will become such a big man that I can give an answer to this reality of yours." The next 10 years were no less than a living death for Sarah. She was left alone again. Her body became even older and more frail. She became dependent on every single penny. People in the slums started calling her the crazy old lady because she would sit staring at the same corner every day, from where her sons had rejected her. She still wore David's old watch on her wrist, that watch which had stopped working, just like Sarah's hopes. The wheel of time kept turning, and the evening of Sarah's life became even blurrier. She was now 60 years old. Her eyesight had dimmed, and she could barely walk. On the stove where she used to cook feasts, now only a small clay pot remained, in which she would bake dry bread for 2 meals. The street people called her the sick old woman. She would often mutter in the silence of the night, "Ethan, Liam, do you still like rice pudding?" She had nothing left except those memories that were now cutting her from the inside like poison. Meanwhile, in the city, that powerful builder, Mr. Vance, was now counting his last breaths. The fear of death had awakened his conscience. With trembling hands, he called Ethan, Liam, and Noah to him. "I told you guys a huge lie. Sarah didn't kill your parents. Instead, she sacrificed her motherhood so you guys could study. That land, that house, I snatched everything by deceit," the builder said, coughing, and handed them the key to his locker, where all the original documents were kept. Hearing this, the ground slipped from beneath the 3 brothers' feet. The woman they had abandoned, calling a bad omen and a killer, was actually their true protector. Blood rushed to Ethan's eyes. Liam began to sob, and Noah hit his hand on the wall and shouted, "What have we done? We strangled our own mother." They now had wealth. They had fame. But there was a wound in their souls that no ointment could heal. The next day, a scene was seen in that old and dusty slum that the people there had never seen. 3 gleaming black Rolls-Royce cars passed through the muddy paths and stopped in front of Sarah's broken hut. Seeing the shine of the cars, the children and adults of the slum froze in their places. The car doors opened and 3 influential men stepped out. But there was no arrogance on their faces, only deep sorrow and shame. Sarah was sitting on a stone outside her hut at that moment. She held a torn old shawl in her hand. As soon as Ethan saw his mother in that dilapidated condition, he ran to her and fell on his knees right there in the mud. "Mom, hit me, Mom. I am a criminal. I doubted my mother. I am not worthy of living," Ethan cried loudly, holding Sarah's feet. Liam and Noah also sat in the mud beside him and began to weep bitterly. Sarah touched Ethan's face with her trembling fingers. Tears didn't come from her eyes, but there was an ocean of pain in her voice. "I forgave you long ago, my children, but my heart broke that day when you belied my motherly love. I didn't want your cars. I just wanted your trust," she said with a choked throat. Noah put his head in Sarah's lap and said, "Mom, we have come to take you back. Now you won't stay in this hell for even a moment. I will fight my own case and take account of every penny from that builder's family who separated us from you." Sarah lifted everyone up and kissed their foreheads. A mother can never hate her children, no matter how big criminals they become, she said. The 3 of them supported her and led her toward those luxurious cars. The whole slum stood watching as spectators how a rejected old woman was leaving today like a queen. Upon reaching the city, the 3 brothers named their biggest mansion the Sarah Residence. But Sarah did not like to sit idly. She told her sons, "If you really want to repent, build a Sarah Memorial Shelter in my name, where no orphan child is separated from their mother and no one sleeps hungry." Today, Sarah manages the kitchen of that very shelter. But now she has thousands of children, and her 3 sons come every evening to eat the same simple bread from her hands. That old picture of David is now hanging at the main entrance of the shelter, as if he is smiling and saying that love and truth never lose. Friends, how did you like this story?
Do let us know your opinion in the comments. If you liked the story, please like the video and don't forget to share it with your friends. And yes, where are you watching this video from? Do write the name of your lovely village or city in the comments. To listen to more such heart-touching stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Torn Promises Stories. See you with the next story. Until then, goodbye.